The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always here, I'm your host, Calvin Glenn Alexander. And on tonight's episode of the podcast, I'm joined by Texas alum Patrick McDermott as we go through the Big 12 football schedule with currently more than 12 teams. So who knows how much longer we'll be able to say more than 12 teams. We may say 20 at some point in the future, but right now we can say 12 is not the only number. It's 14. So Patrick, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. We are, I believe, 20 days from college football. Not from our Big 12 schedule, I don't think, but college football itself kicks off 20 days, August 26th, I believe. Can't come soon enough. It's officially football season. Getting into the nitty gritty, trying not to overreact, but that's some of the most fun thing to do leading up to the season. So we'll definitely do a little of that today. Couldn't be more excited. I think, what do we got? The final year of the Big 12 as we know it, with some of the big boys, and arguably this isn't as we know it. As you said, we got 14 teams. It's pretty crowded. It's going to be a busy season. There's going to be a lot of storylines to look at, and can't wait to watch it all unfold.
Yeah, there's so many things that are going to happen in the Big 12 over the next year that are going to change the perspective of the league, right? Of just, I say league, of all of NCAA. I mean, Pac-12 is probably going to dissolve, but who knows? Maybe they end up adding in a bunch of Mountain West teams and do some crazy things. Maybe the ACC teams are being able to be bought out or make compromises or whatever. But for right now, we're going to focus on the 2023 Big 12 football schedule, and start out with TCU plays Colorado. So former Big 12 team comes back and plays current Big 12 team that wasn't there when they left, and gets to come back. But besides that one non-conference matchup, it's kind of funny to point out here. I want to ask you, we're going to go through the Texas schedule, the OU schedule, the Oklahoma State schedule, pick out some dark horses, and then also try to pick conference championship game. I'm not going to ask you for the winner because that's always so tough. And there's not necessarily in my mind a clear, hey, this team's going to win it all in the Big 12 this year. As usually as an Oklahoma State fan, I'll speak for myself here. Usually it's like, man, OU and whatever Heisman candidate quarterback they have, and then everyone else. And this year, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like it's the whole entire grid's wide open, and want to see what you think as well here too.
Yeah, I agree. I think you'll see. I'll save it for later when we do the conference championship. But I think we're going to see some unusual faces make a lot of noise in the Big 12 this year. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the big boys on top. I know we'll talk a little bit about the new teams as well, kind of what we see from them. But I agree with you. I think it is wide open. I don't think that's going to help the Big 12. I'll say that right off the get-go. I don't see them getting a team in the playoff. We'll get into that as well. But I think this league may end up sort of cannibalizing itself a little bit. A lot of teams kind of beating each other, having a lot of sort of inconsistency about it's not going to be a clear, first, second, third best team, and they kind of win in that order, if that makes sense. I think there's going to be some chaos. I really do. And there's a couple just from a bird's eye view. You mentioned Colorado, TCU kind of kicking off the slate, future Big 12 team, also a former Big 12 team, kind of a crazy scenario there. But we get some interesting games in the final weekend this year. And I don't know if you agree, but besides Bedlam, the Big 12 schedule a lot of times kind of peters off toward the end in recent years. Once a few things got shaken up. So one game I really like this year is OU TCU. OU TCU is the last weekend of the year, which is pretty exciting. TCU gets to bookend its season with two kind of interesting games there. And also this is the final year of Bedlam, is it not? So that's got to be bittersweet. That's another big storyline. Looking in, see who comes away with the final one. So, tell me what do you think about that? I mean, from a I know we'll do the whole schedule here, but from an OSU fan, are you sad not to play OU? I know that game doesn't usually go so well for you, But is that a game you're going to miss, or
I'm
is
so
that a
glad.
game?
I'm
Yeah.
so glad you asked, because that is not a game I'm going to miss. That is one of those games where there has always been such a reluctancy to see OU on the schedule and win, because it's always been in the gut of your stomach and the pit of my stomach every year. It's like, okay, we could have an amazing year. We could be 11-0. We could be 10-0. We get all the way down there to the finish line, but then all of a sudden, okay, we're 10-1, right? We've only lost to Central Michigan, and then OU just kills us, and it's just not even. It's one of those where it's like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. And then we end the season 11-2. We call it 11-1. All type of stuff. The Central Michigan game was just so bizarre, but it's always one of those games where, oh, it's a rivalry, but to who? Like who thinks of that game outside of Oklahoma as a rivalry? Because I honestly don't think of it as a rivalry too much. I'm not trying to get too in my feels here, but when OU, like, calling it as it is, OU beats OSU 90 out of 110 times, whatever it is, I think 100. It's not really a rivalry. And under the Mike Gundy era, Mike Gundy's flipped the script for Oklahoma State football. He has gone on a streak of beating Kansas State, Texas, Iowa State, KU, just everyone in the Big 12, Texas Tech. Anyone who had previously been for Oklahoma State, like, I don't know how we're going to do against them, Mike Gundy's proven to be able to go, yeah, it doesn't matter, we're going to beat them, except for OU. 2 wins against OU in 17 years. And
Tough.
sorry, excuse me, 3 wins, and the 2 of those 3 wins are really close games the entire time. One's 2021, I'm talking about. The other one is where we asked Bob Stoops to basically punt it again to Tyreek Hill, who runs it back, and then we end up scoring in overtime 2 to win. The one game where it's like, oh, we put it on him is 2011, when we probably should have gone to the national championship if we had beat Iowa State at Iowa State on a Friday night. That was weird, but to answer your question directly here, I'm fine not playing OU anymore, because I think, as an Oklahoma State fan, that is the one game every year where it's like, okay, we're just waiting for this team that owns us to beat us again, basically. And OU could be having a horrible year like they were last year and still just crush us when we're having a bad year for us too. We both go to bowl games, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's like, okay, I'm so excited. Usually, as an Oklahoma State fan, Oklahoma State alum, I'm like, can't wait for OU to lose. So it's a good day when OU loses, but not really. It's a really sour way to look at things when I'm excited for the other rival in state to lose. It's like, I should be happy when we win. And then when OU fans are like, oh, can't believe Oklahoma State beat us this year, it's like, yeah, with them, it's usually we got lucky. So I'm happy it's no longer on the schedule after this year, at least for a while.
Well, the good news for you guys is the perfect way to leave a much better taste in your mouth about that whole rivalry is to win the final one. So you have a chance to do that. Where is that game? Is it at home?
It is.
There
It's
you
in
go.
Stillwater.
So that's
Yeah.
cool.
And it's not the last game of the
There's the
year.
bright side.
Yeah. So there's a lot of bright things looking up for Oklahoma State football, and the fact that recruiting class looks good. The Big 12 is going to be completely new, which I know we're going to get into here with a couple of the dark horse teams and stuff too, where you don't know who's going to be on top. And I would take a guy as a head coach who's been head coach of a team for 15 plus years, has a bowl streak of however many years it is now too.
And he's not
versus a
going
bunch of
anywhere.
these other teams. Yeah, he's not yet. If Gundy goes anywhere, he retires or NFL, or he's trying to go get a bigger paycheck if he's flirting with other schools. That's what's been proven. So, I'm happy that OU's not the last game of the season too, because no matter what, it'll be, okay, we play OU, and we can go ahead and jump into the Oklahoma State schedule if we want to, but we play
let's
OU,
start with that.
then UCF, Houston, then BYU at home. So Oklahoma State opens up the season against University of Central Arkansas at home. I'm just going to go out and say that's an easy win. I mean, there's not really a chance I'm saying that one's a close, but if it is, that's really scary. Then at Arizona State, that's where I think it gets tough. We see Alan Bowman, transfer quarterback in Oklahoma State. Is he good? Is he bad? I think it's really more of a pick'em game because they have like a 5-star quarterback in. They have brand new guys in. They're going to be pretty good, Arizona State. They have a brand new head coach. We don't know what to expect from him. But I'm going to also pick Oklahoma State to win. Then University of Southern Alabama. I also I'm gonna say win here. I'm
And
gonna say a win
real
for
quick, just back
Oklahoma
to
State beats USA.
and
Yeah.
I agree with that. I do. Now back to Arizona State, just real quick. They played last year, didn't they? And Oklahoma State won pretty handily, I believe.
So the score. This is what's weird. The score looks pretty handily, but it was 20-17 entering the fourth quarter. Oklahoma State
Okay.
ran away with it at the end, but it was close. It got to be a nail biter scenario a couple times through the game where it didn't feel too confident, and that's with Herm Edwards being like basically almost out the door. He was fired not too many weeks later, and also with a quarterback that's no longer on the team. So I Sun Devils will be tough.
And
Will
that
be
is
tough
at
this year.
Arizona State. So
Mhm.
one to look out for there.
Yeah, for sure. But those three, I think Oklahoma State ends up 3-0 to start the season. Then the Iowa State game on the 23rd of September. That's at Iowa State. I don't know. What's your read on Iowa State this year?
I actually I like them quite a bit. I have them going 7-5, 8-4. I think they rebound a little bit from last year. Honestly, I do think Oklahoma State can win that game. I kind of think they will. That is, that I think it's a good program. I think Iowa State kind of lost some people the last couple of years. I think their best year was the pandemic year. I think that's kind of where they peaked in a weird season. But I think they're definitely still a good program. Obviously, they got a great coach, and that'll be a fun game, I think. But I think OSU can win that.
All right. That's where I am too. Is I'm a win at Iowa State as well. Then what I think it's really tough for Oklahoma State here is that our bye weeks early on in the season again. It's 4 games into the season that we had a bye week. Last year, that's what really was the gut punch for us too, is that it was, okay, we're 4 weeks in, gut punch, and this is where I think we see our first loss coming after that. Is K-State, I think, is going to be pretty darn good this year. They return, excuse me, Will Howard, who just lit us up last year, wasn't close. It was 49-0 is how K-State beat Oklahoma State last year. Granted, that was in Manhattan, but returning quarterback and it's in his senior year, I don't know necessarily what to say too much besides I don't know why they'd lose. I don't know why Oklahoma State would win after last year's showing. And Alan Bowman is a quality quarterback, I think. Otherwise, Gundy wouldn't have him under center. But I don't think he's a game changer from a perspective for Oklahoma State. And we have the same running backs on the roster. We have the same defensive scheme on the roster. We've only lost a couple guys defensively. So,
And people forget. I know you probably don't, but Kansas State defending Big 12 champ.
right.
People forget that. The TCU got all the buzz because they went to the national championship game, well deserved and what have you. Way overachieved, I think, from where most people saw them. But so did Kansas State, and they won their biggest game of the year against playoff team TCU. So now that game was virtually a tie, could have gone either way. I think they won by 3, by the end, but can't take that away from them. Kansas State is definitely a good team. I got to agree. I think that's probably a loss for OSU.
Yeah. And then right after that, this hurts to say as an Oklahoma State fan, but I think we lose 2 in a row at home. We play KU at home, and KU is going to have the Big 12 Player of the Year, Jalen Daniels, right, under center, a quarterback for KU, and I think I have his name slightly wrong there, but that's just a game where like the Big 12, like preseason Big Player of the Year for the Big 12. I just don't see a way that Oklahoma State really has a good chance in this one either. And it's KU. So I would normally say, oh, we should just kill them. It's not going to be close, yada, yada, all this type of stuff. But then again, every single year, it's like, well, I don't know. KU might be good this year. And KU beat us last year. And it was close. It was at KU, but it wasn't just like, oh, Oklahoma State's like there. And that's where I really think that Oklahoma State could just lose 2 in a row at home. It kind of sucks, but like that's how I see it breaking out. I don't know how you see KU playing out this year, but they bring back Leopold,
Yep,
excuse me,
Lance Leipold, great
and they
coach.
bring back their starting quarterback who didn't play in the KU quarterback last year didn't play Oklahoma State. So like we played their backup and we lost to him. Granted, in Lawrence, but still, I just have a
Not exactly a famed
hard
home
time picking
field
Oklahoma
advantage.
State against.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have a real hard
I
time
hear
thinking
what you're
we're going to
saying.
win.
Personally, I don't. I do think Kansas takes a step back. Like, I agree with you. Lance Leipold is a really good coach. And who knows? Maybe they build on last year, and in a year that's this kind of wide open in the conference, maybe they do. But I'm not as sold on Kansas this year. I think they overachieved last year, sort of like TCU did to a greater extent. Kansas. I think this is a season they might be scratching and clawing for a bowl game type of season. But we'll see. We'll see. I think OSU may have a better chance there than you think. Like you say, they're at home this year, against Kansas, and I think in a conference like this, you gotta win your road games. Like, if you can steal a couple road games, that's going to be the key. And I don't think this is one that Kansas can steal. So I'll put a vote of confidence for the Cowboys there.
Hear me out on this. I love it. I want to take your word for it. But the other thing I think about is that KU beat us 37-16 last year with their backup quarterback. Like, that's what just keeps going back through my head. Like, they beat us like by this much. They beat us by 21 points last year with their backup quarterback. It's just tough for me to go, yeah, we've got this, as far as Oklahoma State goes. So I would love for us to get it. I think normally every single year, like, oh yeah, it'll be easy, and it's Jalen Daniels. I should look it up here for KU. But
yeah, I thought for a second you were mixing him up with the LSU guy, but that's Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I had to double check too. I was like, is it Jaden or Jalen? They're both like D1 premier quarterbacks. But yeah, go ahead.
No, that's kind of it though. Overall, it's just okay. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that. So we'll. I would love to take your stance on it, but I'll go ahead and just jump to West Virginia this year. West Virginia is the team that I think is going to be the doormat of the Big 12. They, in the preseason media poll for the Big 12, are picked to finish 14th by far and away in the Big 12. They are not picked to do well at all. They're picked to just basically be replenishing their roster this year from scholarship perspective. And even though Oklahoma State has to go to Morgantown, Oklahoma State's lost once to West Virginia before in the Big 12. I think they've lost once right when West Virginia joined and once last year. I don't see Oklahoma State losing to West Virginia, and I don't see Oklahoma State losing 3 in a row. So that's where I stand on the West Virginia game, is Oklahoma State goes ahead and takes care of business in Morgantown.
Yeah, honestly, I did not know that. That West Virginia was picked last in the AP. That's a little surprising, especially with some of the people coming in. I personally kind of think Houston is going to have trouble winning games in the Big 12. I think Houston could be that doormat, in my opinion. They lost their quarterback. They haven't had Dana Holgerson was supposed to come in and really kind of revitalize there, and he hasn't really done it. Clayton Tune was their quarterback, veteran guy, and so they'll be breaking in a new one. That's sort of a side note here, but I kind of think West Virginia. I don't necessarily see them making any noise. I think they're another one of those like borderline bowl teams, but we'll see. We'll see. I think that could be an even game. I could see it going either way.
All right. Well, moving on to Cincinnati here. Oklahoma State, I think, beat Cincinnati at home. That's homecoming for Oklahoma State. We've got a really good record homecoming games for the past several years, and it's Cincinnati. Like, I don't know what to expect from them too much, but I feel pretty good about it. Not necessarily sure why, but I'll go back to the Big 12 media poll again and throw it out one more time. Cincinnati's picked to finish 13th. Oklahoma State's picked to finish 7th. So I'll take Oklahoma State, every single day of the week over Cincinnati at home. for homecoming and the first one at home here after losing 2 in a row at home. So I think Oklahoma State there for sure.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on Cincinnati there, I also agree. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to have difficulty there. They got the coach from Louisville, Scott Satterfield. So he's a new guy. Obviously, Luke Fickell had tremendous success there. Playoff appearance, spectacular run there. Just an awesome coach, awesome guy. He's now at Wisconsin. But he was their new coach, Scott Satterfield. He also was the coach of Appalachian State before he was at Louisville. So he's got a little bit of, he's got some experience, although he wasn't exactly making huge waves at Louisville. So, that's still, I would say, a borderline upgrade at head, for him as far as the coaching tree. I mean, that's an okay job, but I think a lot of that program's success was due to Luke Fickell and having just an incredible recruiter there, having players like Sauce Gardner, like they just don't have those guys anymore. So I agree. I think they're going to have some growing pains coming to the Big 12. I think OSU takes care of business there.
Awesome. Glad to hear you're with me on that one, because the next couple takes here I have are, I think, a little bit more of a doozy. So, so after winning 2 in a row, Oklahoma State, last year Bedlam. I know it's at home. Listen, the week before the game, I'd love to catch up with you again here and just say Oklahoma State or bust. But right now, as it stands, before Bedlam, you heard my little pre-speech. I'm not picking Oklahoma State against Dylan Gabriel and his second year in a Big 12 system and his second year with Jeff Lebby, his offensive coordinator, and Brett Venables getting the whole defensive staff tuned up with OU. And guys, I'm just not picking them. And honestly, Mike Gundy, this is the one game every year where he plays it so close to the chest and doesn't take risks that it just sucks. So, not pick Oklahoma State against OU last year at Bedlam, at least for now. TBD. We got teams joining conferences left and right, stuff shifting around. And who knows? Maybe Oklahoma State will have some room in their non-conference schedule in the future. But for right now, we're losing to OU. And then I also think we're losing to UCF on the road. University of Central Florida, that's the next week we have here. And it's just, they're picked to finish one spot behind us in the Big 12 football media preseason poll. I keep referring back to that because I think it's a good indicator of where everyone else sees us. That's a little bit more or less biased than myself. I generally see everything, through super orange tinted glasses. Now I'm saying America's brightest orange, not America's burnt orange, because I'm not a Texas fan.
Understood.
But I do see everything through super orange tinted glasses. So I try to call it what it is. And when we're picked to finish above UCF by 7 points in the preseason poll, it's not enough for me to think that a road game is going to be that winnable. And also UCF is sold out their season tickets. So that we know that place will be jumping. I don't know if UCF is going to be that good. I honestly don't know too much about the program overall. And I know earlier on in the season, they play basically a bunch of no names that I didn't know Villanova had a football team. If you had told me, coin toss, $50,000 to Villanova football team or not, I would have said no. But UCF's playing them in the preseason, their third week of the season this year, So I think UCF will come in that Oklahoma State game fired up, ready to go, and possibly going towards a Big 12 championship game, which we'll get to a little bit later on, because their schedule really does go that way that they could be lining up for it. Who knows? So I've got UCF winning this one though against Oklahoma State.
I'll jump in too, and we've done we've touched briefly on 2 of those new Big 12 teams. I guess we may as well have a word here about UCF too, and we'll go back and hit BYU when we do Texas's schedule. But UCF, I think, is going to have by far the best season of any of those 4 new teams. I think they could be. I don't think they'll be in the championship game, but I think their floor is probably 7-5. I think they could definitely go 7-5 with that schedule. You mentioned, and they could easily hit 8-4. I think a 9-win season would be great for them because Gus Malzahn is the coach there. Former Auburn guy. This is his 3rd season at UCF, and he's had 2 9-win seasons in a row in his first 2 years, and that was in the American Conference. So I guess logic would say if he won 9 games in the American, he should, win a little less than that if he's got a similar team. But I don't necessarily think so. I think they're going to be pretty darn good. Whether or not they beat OSU, I don't have a strong opinion, to be honest. I think they'll lose a few games in there somewhere on their schedule. But you're right. I mean, they don't play Texas. They, that's big. They don't play TCU. So, and those games are replaced basically by playing Houston and playing Kansas and West Virginia, and those teams. So, that some things break their way. I mean, they have a non-conference game against Boise State, which is kind of cool. Talk about a long travel day. I mean, like Boise State to Central Florida, that is about as tough a flight as it gets. So and they're flying to Boise, by the way. So that is a tough one. But I do think they win the game. I mean, they're the better team. That's just a fun little fluke on the schedule. Like that's kind of surprising that they agreed to that. But I like UCF this year. I really do. I think they're going to have a good team. I don't think they're going to have the growing pains going to the Big 12 that, say, a Houston is going to have.
Yeah, well, in Oklahoma State, the one really good thing for us this year is that we play all 4 newcomers. And so we finish out the schedule with at Houston, then BYU at home. And yeah, we do have to play OU. Yeah, we do have to play K-State. We also don't play TCU and we don't play Texas, as you're talking about with UCF. So that's a really nice turn of events for Oklahoma State. We also don't play Texas Tech, who I think could be okay this year. They've got non-conference schedule that's not super easy because they play Oregon. But still, I think that Oklahoma State here could shape up to be 8-4 in the season with, I'm going to go ahead and say it, winning at Houston and the BYU at home to end the season. No, that's my pick here for Oklahoma State. It's 8-4. It's close here. I definitely think 7-5 is possible, but the Cowboys have a lot of playmakers from both sides of the ball here. We've got Kendall Daniels as safety. We've got Colin Oliver playing defensive line. Both were picked to finish in, preseason Big 12 nominations for stuff. And we've got Ollie Gordon, a running back, who I don't think has had the chance to really show how good he can be. And the guy looks like he's already in the NFL physically. So that to me is going to be going a long way if we can really start running the ball. And then hopefully at the end of the year, get more of the air raid stuff back and really have that kind of, okay, yeah, you've got Kendall Hunter. Yeah, you've got Chuba Hubbard. Yeah, you've got, insert X, Vernon Morency, if I'm really throwing it back there, and a bunch of other guys for Oklahoma State that I'm sure I'm forgetting. Joseph Randall as well, too. So I love the idea of Oklahoma State here going 8-4 to end out the season, with the 4 losses being, unfortunately at the end of the day, but being K-State, KU, and then OU, UCF, and, moving on, having a hard time. So
nothing wrong with that. 8-4 is a pretty good season that should land you in, say, the Alamo Bowl, maybe, something like that, a fun bowl game like that. And I think I would have them a little lower. I think more in the 7-5 range is probably more likely for me. But I think this is a bowl team. This is not a Big 12 championship team, I'm sorry to say. But yeah, they're replacing a long-time starting quarterback. They're replacing guys. Obviously there's a ton of stability for the program. I think that's the best thing that OSU has going for it as an outsider is their stability. I mean, they've had the same coach forever. They have a known excellent college football atmosphere and environment, pretty darn good home field advantage, compared to a lot of teams. And I think they stand out in the conference in that way. They're always fun to watch on TV. I don't think this is the year they go all the way, but I do think we'll see them playing in a bowl game, in that 7-5 range. So I like it, and I'm sure OSU fans not necessarily satisfied with that, but that is kind of how I see it going.
Yeah, it's not a 10-win season, but you know what? Not every year can be. A lot of years have been previously, and this is a bounce back year for Oklahoma State after finishing last year with a subpar ending, 7-6. This is a chance for Oklahoma State to really just go, yeah, we're not ever out. We're just, kind of down a little bit some years, but we still go to bowl games. So Let's go ahead and talk about University of Texas. Those Longhorns here. How
Hook
are you
'em
feeling?
horns. I'm feeling okay. This
Okay.
is this is just as hyped as every other year of Texas football is. I'm used to it at this point. I'm used to being disappointed. I'm ready to get hurt again. I think I came on here last year, and I think I picked them to go 11-1 last year, including
Mm-hmm.
a win against Bama. That obviously didn't happen. So I'm going to try something different. I am going to pick for an underachieving Texas team. Spoiler alert as we go through the season, because frankly, I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen it on the field. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet still believe, as somebody said. But I'm not one of those people. I haven't seen it yet, so I do not believe. I do not believe in Texas as a playoff team yet. On paper, we should be great. We lost Bijan Robinson, one of our best players, in recent memory, top 10 draft pick. Can't be mad about that. But every single other person from the offense is back. So that is a huge vote of confidence in the offense. Quinn Ewers another year under his belt. I think he's going to improve. He should improve. And if he happens to be injured or if he severely underperforms and gets benched, I think would all be very lucky to get to watch Malik Murphy on a football field. This is a guy that not enough people are talking about. Forget Arch Manning for the time being. Who knows if he's going to transfer or not, whatever. We're so lucky to have him while he's here. Malik Murphy is a guy. He redshirted last year. He's like 6'5", giant quarterback, absolute cannon arm. Not enough people are talking about this guy. He would be a starter right now on about 80 college football teams. The guy is a beast. Malik Murphy. That being said, this is Quinn Ewers' year. He's going to make or break this team, along with a defense that historically has had a lot of trouble in the secondary. Like that, we give up big plays like nobody's business. So that needs to stop. This is a team that has it all on offense, I think. I mean, Jatavian Sanders is definitely one of the top tight ends in the country, the Bama transfer. We have a couple new transfer wide receivers, Adonai Mitchell and Isaiah Nair from Colorado. So those guys are going to contribute right away, along with Xavier Worthy, a wide receiver, all Big 12 guy. He's only gotten better. And then Jordan Whittington, the veteran who came back for, I believe, a fifth season. Like he used his COVID eligibility year. So we got a lot of experience in these playmaking weapons, and we just got to use them. So getting into the schedule, we beat Rice for sure. I'll skip that. First game of the year, Rice at home. That's tough. Rice, by the way, they also play a couple other Big 12 teams. I think they play Houston. And I saw them on somebody else's schedule as I was looking through it. So Rice is really going through the ringer. Shout out to them. I'm sure they're enjoying those paychecks for playing the big games. But then we got Bama, and this is tough. It's Bama on the road in Tuscaloosa. I rewatched the Austin game from last season recently, and I had my heart broken all over again. Because that game was so winnable, had some very questionable calls from the refs that I know all those Texas fans out there remember. But that was a game that we were within a point of winning, even with Quinn Ewers injured for 3/4 of that game. Incredibly, incredibly tough. And at the end of the day, we just got beat by a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Bryce Young, who made 3 or 4 Heisman plays in that game. So this is a big time revenge game. The problem is it's on the road. I think with this home and home with Bama, I sort of have a feeling that last year was our chance to win. Like that was our chance to beat Bama at home, record crowd, all of that and all of the above. So I don't think they do it. I really want to pick them, but I don't think Texas beats Bama this year, even with a new quarterback for Bama. Still a little bit unsure about who that's going to be. I know this is not an SEC podcast, but they've got the transfer guy from Notre Dame Buckner coming in. He could potentially start. He didn't do a whole lot at Notre Dame. And they also have Notre Dame's offensive coordinator in Tommy Rees. So who knows what Alabama is going to look like on offense, but they obviously do nothing but reload every year. And that home field is going to be tough. If Texas beats Bama in that week 2 game, we are looking at a special season for Texas. I really think so. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily see that happening. How do you see that game going?
Yeah, Rice win. Not even worth the breath out of my mouth on that one. But besides that one, the Alabama game, it's tough. Like you said, I think the chance was last year. I think that's really well put. This year, it's like, man, you know what? Like, you never know. It's week 2. Alabama could lose this game and still be the national championship at the end of the year, especially depending on Texas does. But when in doubt, you pick Alabama. You just do. And Texas, unfortunately, not trying to get under your skin here. I don't think you're going to take this a bad way, but Texas is not proven to be that team to knock a team off or really show up against them when they weren't expecting it or do whatever. Everyone gets ready for Texas. That's the thing. Is that, like, I would say Texas is like the Dallas Cowboys of college football, where you see the star, you see the logo, you see the horns, you see the logo, you know who they are, and you want to make sure to say, hey, that's the game we're going to get up and get excited for, especially preseason. Alabama, SEC schedule, they don't ever face that many teams that are like absolutely agonizingly just tough as nails. In my mind, they get to play the Ole Misses of the world who give them trouble. They get to play the LSUs of the world, give them trouble. Then, like, they'll play Arkansas. You know what I mean? It's kind of like to me at least, okay, if Oklahoma State had to play Arkansas, I wouldn't be talking this way. But it's Alabama. Like, you just think they will. And this goes to the point of, okay, Alabama will get up for Texas. Like, they won't overlook this one. And that's the way Texas could beat them. Is like last year at home when maybe you overlook him and Bryce Young doesn't have the best game ever. And then all of a sudden he does in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I think this is one where Alabama wins.
Yeah, and I would be so happy to be proven wrong. And like I said, if they do, I mean, I'm almost glad it's week 2 and really the first meaningful game, just like it was last year. But we are going to know really soon what kind of Texas team we are dealing with, and we're going to know it's the perfect measuring stick playing against. Everybody says it. We want Bama. We want Bama. And it's the Sarkisian connection. We have half of Bama's old coaching staff, for crying out loud, and a couple of their big time transfers too. So, Texas, this whole sort of architecture of the Texas program has sort of been built on, we want to be Bama. We want our facilities to look like Bama. We want our coaching staff to be like Bama. We want to build our team the way Bama does. And last year, we were one play away, arguably, from overcoming them and sort of proving we belong. So this is a giant chance to do that. It's just a big time uphill battle. We do have more experience, at quarterback and more experience from the playmakers. So anything's possible, but boy, does that look like a tough game to win. But we'll move on here to Wyoming. Can't say too much about Wyoming. I think we win that game. It's at home. Let's not overthink it. We beat Wyoming. So I'll move on to Baylor, who we really haven't talked about yet. And I mentioned I'm picking Texas to underachieve, partly as part of the reverse jinx sort of experiment here. A little bit of reverse psychology for the football gods here. But I think Texas loses to Baylor. Baylor is always a really tough game for us, although we did beat them in the regular season finale last year. But Dave Aranda is a great coach, and I think Baylor ends up in the Big 12 championship game. Spoiler alert, for later, I'll get your picks too. But I think Baylor makes that championship game. They are incredibly well coached. I think they have a lot of talent. They play well on the road, and I think that's what it takes. I think they could be one of those overachieved teams. You mentioned the preseason poll; they were picked 6th out of 14. So, I'm high on Baylor, compared to a lot of people, but I think they have it in them this year. I think they're very good. I've said it twice now, but Dave Aranda is one of my favorite coaches in the country. I think he can win any game that he's in, and I think he's proven that. He's already had success. I think he's gonna peak this year. But I think Texas goes down versus Bama. Versus Baylor. I really do.
That being an away game. Listen, like, it's going to be filled with Texas fans. Like, it's not far away. It's McLean Stadium. It won't be just a huge Baylor crowd is the way to say it. I mean, Baylor faithful will be there, but like, kind of like Texas fans don't travel at all. I mean, this isn't a K-State game, where it's that far of a travel destination either. And it's in the state of Texas. But with that being said, I do agree. Dave Aranda's a great head coach. I think you guys will beat in the fighting Josh Allen's of Wyoming, and then have to go to Baylor. And I'm not trying to say their home atmosphere is anything to be too afraid of. Is my point here, but it's not an easy game. It's just never easy at Baylor, and I could see it being a total toss-up. For me, I think this is one that Texas has to win for you guys to like keep on a first place overall team kind of start, but. Yeah, I could see this being a slip up. I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm going to take
Baylor. Baylor was I believe they were a 6-6 team last year. Like, Baylor had a down year last year, and I just really think they're a better program than that. I think last year was a blip on their record rather than the norm. So my predictions are just going to be conservative today as far as Texas is concerned. Like, I think Baylor is good enough to beat Texas, especially since Texas has not proven to me that they can win the games they're supposed to win. And they are supposed to beat Baylor. Like, they absolutely are supposed to beat Baylor, but they tend to drop 2-3 games like this every year. So I'm picking this as one of those games. So moving on from Baylor to Kansas. I am not as high on Kansas as you are for this upcoming year. They don't have the talent. Their quarterback is way better than they're used to at quarterback. But I think Texas takes care of them. I really do. I mean, Kansas was supposed to be, they were much improved last year. I think what did they start 5-0 last year or something, and got everybody talking.
Good start.
But then, they faded down the stretch, and they were certainly better than Kansas had been in the past. Like, Kansas was used to kind of struggling to win a game. And that Kansas is probably gone. So credit to Lance Leipold on that. Like, Kansas is not a doormat anymore. They're not, they're going to be competing for a bowl game. But I honestly don't think they get there. I think they kind of regress back a little bit. They would need a lot of things to go right, I think, for them to make any noise this year. And I kind of don't think they will. So I'm gonna pick Texas to beat Kansas. We also killed them last year. We lost to them in Sark's first year in overtime. That was tough. But then went out and beat them by like 55-10 last year or something like that. So I think that's gonna be the norm. Those games feel good to win by as much as you're supposed to win them by. So I think we get back to form doing that regularly. So and then we have OU. We got OU. It's luckily that is sticking around with the SEC, so that's good news. And I think they officially announced too. It's now like branded as the Red River rivalry, which I was like, wasn't it always called that? But apparently it was the Red River Shootout, and then for a couple years they called it the Red River Showdown. Just call it the Red River rivalry. So now they are finally, none of that matters. It's just like the way it's broadcast and the way it's branded, but we all kind of got a laugh out of that. But I think Texas beats OU this year. Like that, OU has got a ton to prove, arguably way more than Texas. And we can talk more in detail about OU later on, but OU had a very bad year. Like OU went 5-7, which is unheard of. And with a brand new head coach who had nothing but success as a coordinator, that's an embarrassment. So I think OU has a lot of growing up to do if they want to get back in the mix. And I think Texas is, I think OU will improve this year. I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year, but Texas is the better team and they're going to win this game.
Yeah, a couple of things for OU last year. Losing to K-State initially looked like, wait a second, oh my gosh, is OU just free falling? And then you realize, wait, K-State's pretty good. They won the Big 12. And you realize a couple other things here too. But I'm not picking them to beat Quinn Ewers in the Red River, in the RRR Red River rivalry. I mean, that's a total tongue twister there. But I'm not picking them to beat Texas there because they haven't. Last year didn't show it. Dylan Gabriel did not jump off the charts as, oh my gosh, this Jeff Lebby system, who used to be his offensive coordinator at UCF before he transferred, and it just didn't prove to be it. So talk about it. Yeah, I think you guys beat KU. As an Oklahoma State fan, the KU battle scars of like last year, 37-16. It's KU. We should beat them like a drum every year, you would think. So that, to me, is one of those. Oklahoma State, I'm worried about KU. Texas, I'm not. It's at home. It shouldn't be too tough of a challenge. And Jalen Daniels is an easy guy to look at the roster and go, don't let that one dude beat us, right? Oklahoma State,
true.
Those scars are still there. OU game, it's kind of the same with Dylan Gabriel, I would say. You can't let that quarterback sit back there and be it. The one thing I'd say is that Oklahoma State was able to get to Quinn Ewers last year. That was the one thing where it just seemed odd. Texas was having a good season, staying in games. Quinn was getting a little healthier. And then Oklahoma State game, second half, it's like at a happy feet or something. Oklahoma State didn't win that game by a lot. It was 41-34. But it was enough where it was like, this is a little odd play from Texas quarterback here. So I'd be curious about it. But at the same point, I think Texas is going to be one of those teams at the end of the year that's in the Big 12 championship. And right now, I got one loss, maybe two against Baylor, but one out of conference loss and then one loss against Baylor. Yeah, I think you guys beating OU, and I don't think OU will have a tremendously great season or bad season. I don't think they'll have a season like they did last year. I think they'll finish right close to Oklahoma State, kind of the 8-4 range again, and they'll bounce back quite a bit here just because they'll have another year in their whole getting everything together system, basically. And the whole year of Brett Venables being able to recruit guys will help out a ton, too.
Yeah, agreed. And I do like him as a coach in spite of myself, but results speak for themselves, and like 5-7 is tough. And before everyone out, I can hear everyone, screaming at their car speakers or wherever you're listening to this. Sark went 5-7 in his first year. Yes, he did, but he wasn't coming. He wasn't inheriting a program that was used to 10-win seasons plus every single year and multiple playoff appearances. Basically handed the keys to a well-oiled machine and then went 5-7. That would have been like Ryan Day taking over Ohio State and immediately going 5-7. He didn't do that. Ryan Day took over a well-oiled machine at Ohio State and kept them winning 11 games, going to the playoffs. So Brett Venables has a ton to prove. Their season basically boils down to, will they rebound? Like, yes or no? Like, will they get back to form or will they not? I think no. I have them going 7-5. I think they're super beatable still, as they showed last year, but improvement, but not a lot. So I have Texas beating them.
Yeah.
And then we have a bye week. So nice little dead center split right down the middle bye, which is nice. And then we've got two games against the newbies. We've got Houston and BYU. So that is neither of those really scare me too much. I mentioned Houston, I think could easily be last in the Big 12. That's kind of where I see them ending, honestly. I don't think we're going to have any trouble with Houston. That is one, probably even more so than Baylor, as you mentioned, that is going to be a complete Texas crowd. I'm pretty sure that is technically a road game. Let me double check. Yeah, it's on the road at Houston, but 2.5 hours up the road is Austin, and I mean Houston. Half of Houston is UT fans anyway, so I think that's going to be a complete Texas crowd. I think they're going to handle Houston with no trouble. BYU is a little more interesting, although I think they're going to struggle in their first year also. I have Texas winning both of these games. The biggest thing about this BYU game is that it is going to give me flashbacks, and if it goes the way I think it will, I think Texas wins this game. It's going to be a little satisfying, given that the last time we played BYU was my freshman year of college at UT, when Taysom Hill, none other than Taysom Hill, beat Texas at home by about 40 points and just ran all over Charlie Strong's first defense there. So that was a really tough way to start off my my college experience as a Texas student. So this is going to feel good. Hopefully, if Texas takes care of business, but I really think they will. I don't see much trouble with either of those teams.
The only thing I can say is that Keaton Slovis, he plays for BYU. The guy who played for Pittsburgh and then transferred to USC didn't really play a ton for USC. That's, because Caleb Williams transferred as well. But that's not the point here. Keaton Slovis. It's just kind of, names changing places, all type of stuff. Transfer portal's very active. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, I think you're right. I think that Texas goes ahead and takes care of business here. That Houston game, that one, I feel completely fine saying it'll be a University of Texas Longhorn crowd there, brother. And you'll basically be going, I'm trying to do a whole L accent here just to be funny, but that's myself getting a little bit tired in the tongue here. So, but then the BYU game, that one's a home game where I may be worried about if it's in Provo, but it's not. It's in Austin, it's a DKR. So that's a win as well.
I think so. So moving on now to K-State. K-State, that is one I'm going to put down as a loss. Again, kind of conservative. But these are the top two pick teams in the Big 12. Kansas State was really close to being picked to win the Big 12. As you mentioned, returning their quarterback, I believe, and most of that team that won the Big 12. So they deserve to be up there in the conversation. I think this is a toss-up. I really do. I think this is a toss-up, and I'm gonna pick against Texas, which I hate to do. But again, we're gonna try a little bit of reverse psychology here. I think we're gonna know after the Bama game if this Texas team is gonna be close to running the table. So, but K-State is really good. They're very good. I'm blanking on their coach's name now. I looked it up a second ago. But taking over for their longtime regime there, like that's a tough job. So I think he's done an incredible job. Give me 2 seconds. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. Chris Kleeman. Kleeman. Yeah. So, that's what more can you say? Their Bill Snyder was there for 40 years or something. So they showed themselves to be a legit team last year. They're returning a lot of guys, sort of like Texas. They lost their longtime premier veteran running back, but I don't think they're going to miss him quite as much. But Kansas State will definitely have a good year. I don't see them making the Big 12 championship game again. But I think they'll be in the mix, in the conversation. We don't need to go into their schedule in too much depth, but I do think they fade a little bit down the stretch, losing to Baylor and maybe Iowa State. So, but I think that's a game Texas could lose. I'd put it similar to the Baylor game, where Texas just tends to lose like 2 or 3 Big 12 games that they're not supposed to against kind of overachieving opponents. And I think K-State could be that team.
This is where we differ. I think that this Texas team, in my mind, makes the Big 12 championship game. I don't know if they're going to win or not, but I think they make the Big 12 championship game. And this is one where I think they go ahead and take care of business at home. Last year, that K-State loss rings tough, right? And
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
You know what? Maybe you do the reverse jinx, I do the jinx, and we'll call it good here. But I think
no
this is one where Quinn Ewers takes care of business here and goes ahead and this is his like Heisman moment ish. I mean, as we're building towards it, maybe at the end of the season here.
Yeah, absolutely. So then moving on to TCU. So this is a big time revenge game. I mean, TCU, I think they won 8 games by 5 or less points or something last year. It's a they had a crazy run. Probably couldn't do it again. I don't think they're going to do it again. But TCU is a good team. Texas lost a heartbreaking game to them at home last year. So this one's on the road, which is tough, but this is one I'm going to pick Texas to take. It's another one of those possible toss-up games, but I like Texas in a revenge game here. They lost last year 17-10 at home, and it was one of those things where a million things went wrong for Texas, and they just could not get a foothold. We outplayed them, but just couldn't get points on the board. If one or two, sort of like the Bama game, where one or two things go differently, and this game is a Texas win. So I think we get it back. TCU, we mentioned they've got an interesting schedule. Sonny Dykes, the coach, gotta love him. Or wait, did I just say the wrong name? Sonny Dykes, right?
It's Sonny Dykes, yeah.
Yeah. I thought for a second it was the Arkansas guy. Yeah. Sonny Dykes. But TCU, they overachieved last year. They're absolutely a good program, but I think Texas wins here, even though it's in Fort Worth.
I agree. Could not have said better myself. I do think TCU, Max Duggan ended up being a 7th round draft pick, and he took his team to the national championship. So
he's a dog. He's a dog.
He's a dog. He's a Charger, but he's also not there anymore. So yeah, I don't think TCU has the same fire and twinkle in their eyes they did last year. Yeah, exactly.
So we'll breeze through here so we can. I have a take about our last game of the season that I think would be a good segue here, but I think we beat Iowa State. We touched on them earlier. Good program, pretty good team, but Texas is the better team. I think they win. So even though, again, that's on the road, could be tough. Could be a tough environment, but we tend to beat them. Tom Herman was the one who had trouble with Iowa State. So, I think we've been better against them recently, and I think we'll continue to do that. And with your permission, I will kind of segue, given our last game of the year here, into who I think is going to be the surprise team in the Big 12 this year, and that's Texas Tech.
Wow.
I think Texas Tech is set up to have a really incredible year. I think they could win 10 games. I really do. And I'll just get it out of the way. I think Texas loses their last game of the year to Texas Tech, given that I think Texas Tech is coming off of a magical season. I don't think they're competing for a playoff at 10-2, but I think Texas Tech, they are returning their entire offense, which coming from last year, it's Shao, I think, is their quarterback. I have no idea how to say his name, but he's a returning starter. They were a top 10 passing offense last year, like they always are. Tyler Shao, that's the Oregon transfer. They're a great team. They quietly also have a really good home field advantage, and their 3 of their biggest games, with the exception of Texas, are all at home. They have a crazy non-conference game against Oregon, which is at home in Lubbock. They also play K-State and TCU at home in Lubbock, where they went 6-1 last year. Texas Tech scares me a lot. They also killed Ole Miss from the SEC in their bowl game. They have a ton of momentum. I would hammer the over on their win total, which is 7.5. If anyone out there is a gambling person, over 7.5 wins seems like a great bet to me. I have Texas Tech making the Big 12 championship game and playing Baylor. And this is I made a conscious decision to not go chalk here and just go, Texas against Oklahoma or Texas against K-State or whatever. I'm going out on a limb here you may think, but I think by the time we get to this matchup in the last weekend, I think Texas Tech is going to be in position for that Big 12 championship game. And I personally, begrudgingly, really believe in this team and think they're going to get super hot this year. Thoughts?
Wow. I did not see them coming. The game's in Austin, and it's a Friday game. To me, this is one that's right. The
My
game's
pick,
in Austin, or am I looking at last year's?
Nope, the game's in Austin. And by the way, this pick has more to say about how I feel about Texas Tech rather than I feel about like this particular matchup. I just think Texas Tech is going to surprise everybody this year. And that maybe is my hottest take in the Big 12, from this whole episode. But I think Texas Tech is going to have maybe not quite a TCU level season from last year. I don't think Texas Tech is making the championship game or anything, but I think they could win the Big 12. I really do.
So I'll say this: UCF in my mind, they're great. Like they'll be there at the end. We'll be going, hey, UCF. That's my kind of like dark horse I see making all the way. But man, Texas Tech, maybe it's possible. I just the Oregon game, like, man, that's a game that Bo Nix and Oregon you figure would win.
I do agree. I don't necessarily think they win that game, but the fact that it's at home in Lubbock, Lubbock is a tough place to travel to. So I think they have a real chance in that game against Oregon. I
don't want to just necessarily have to check my stats every single second, but Oklahoma State beats Texas Tech. And if I'm setting the bar at Oklahoma State on if you're going to be good or not, Oklahoma State's not bad. But like Texas Tech, you got to be better. You got to beat Oklahoma State last year when we won 7 games. And they didn't. And they had the same quarterback. And granted, it was in Stillwater. But like, man, that's one where I see Texas winning against Iowa State and Texas Tech, and then going to play UCF in Big 12 championship with having 1, maybe 2 losses, Alabama and then maybe Baylor on the schedule. And I just don't see it for Tech.
I hope you're right. I really do.
I don't. He put up stats against Oklahoma State, but we kept shooting ourselves in the foot the entire game, that game. And so I just don't. Maybe you're right. And I just completely.
I'm just saying,
it's crazy. Yeah,
they got guys. Like Texas Tech has guys. And they got one that I was reading about preparing for this was they got a 4-year starter center from Western Kentucky. All-American center who transferred there for his super senior season. So they got leadership on that offensive line. They had their best recruiting class in the last 7 years. I think Texas Tech is big time on the rise, and I'm going out on a limb and picking this as the year they put it together.
And maybe Oklahoma State played Donovan Smith last year, and that was the deal because I don't remember
Shao was hurt. He was
Shao that much, but. Man, I just
and he's Donovan Smith. I think he's the Houston guy now. He transferred to Houston.
That's too
so
funny.
he's got a little bit of experience over there, but not much. So we'll see on that. Yeah. But that's my my haywire idea. It's not that crazy. And you mentioned the preseason poll. They're picked 4th in the Big 12. They're ahead of TCU. Yeah. That's a big deal. They're ahead of Baylor. Clearly other people do see this. I think that's going to be the big hiccup. That's going to be the hiccup in the Big 12 this year is Texas Tech is going to skyrocket. Maybe it's a 1-year thing. Maybe Joey McGuire has really built an actual program here and they could stick around. But I think this is the year they kind of make themselves known.
Yeah. The thing, I guess, for Texas Tech is they play 3 of the 4 new teams. Yeah, they play all 4. They play Houston, UCF, BYU. They don't play Cincinnati.
They don't play Cincinnati.
Hey, Wyoming and Tarleton State are 2 easy teams to play against, but then the Oregon game.
And by the way, I have their second loss being to Baylor. Okay. I do think Baylor beats them. I think they lose to Oregon and Baylor, but other than that, I think they could win out. So I'll put my stamp on that. I'll say they
right.
win 10 games. Why not?
It's very, very possible. And for all the listeners here, we'll come back here and maybe we'll do OU and the rest of the Big 12 kind of next week because we're already at an hour into the podcast. But like, I don't know. It's or we could just run through our U schedule real quick if you want to, because it's just
we don't need to necessarily do the whole schedule here. I mean, I think they go 7-5. You know, they have a ridiculously easy out of conference schedule.
It's stupid easy.
Like, come on, guys. Arkansas State, SMU, and Tulsa. Like, come on. Where's
the Ohio State of old? You know, when are you going to play some real teams? You know, what are we doing here?
Seriously, yeah. But that's OU for you. You know, that's just the kind of program they are. That's the but I mean, they got it. Yeah. And they play BYU, you know, who's not great. I mean, we'll see. But I think OU, I have them going 7-5, which sort of like UCF. I think they'll be in line with UCF, sort of, where 7-5 is probably their floor realistically, but they could easily go 8-4. That's kind of where I see them, and you know, I think the middle of their schedule it could get tough, you know, with Texas and UCF, but then they got Kansas, OSU, and West Virginia. No offense, you know, that those should be winnable games for them, and BYU as well. So I think they close out the year okay.
Yeah, it's 7-5 for OU. Who do you have them losing to? Who do you think these 5 losses are? If you're in Texas, you know, and UCF, I think is what you're saying. But
Texas, probably UCF, and then TCU, and then I would also just have them drop a game to Iowa State.
Yeah,
and then possibly, I mean, so maybe 8-4 is probably better. I mean, I could throw them a loss at Bedlam also on the road,
or Cincinnati on the road. Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
You know, I mean, it's possible.
Early season
here. Yeah.
How about you? Where do you see them ending up?
I see them like 9-3. You know, it just Dylan Gabriel was supposed to be like the guy, and he just didn't look great last year. I got to think he takes another step in the right direction this year with that offense. OU was just depleted. It was like, how are they going to do with Brett Venables after losing Lincoln Riley? Oh, they got Gabriel in, etc. I just think they could take another. I think they could just be like bounce back almost. Where for OU 9-3 is not great. Like OU's used to having a double-digit win season every year and then still going. We did make it to the Gold Championship. What happened? So I could see OU just being right there. Their non-conference is so easy. They play the teams that they generally slip up against. You know, the West Virginias of the world, the Iowa States of the world, the TCUs of the world. They all play them at home. So, I just like OU's going to beat Kansas. I feel like OU's going to beat Oklahoma State, unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say. The at BYU game, I could see them losing. And then, like, Texas, I could see them losing. And then one of the other ones. But, like, that's kind of where I see OU is, like, 9-3, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, maybe they lose Cincinnati, but I don't know. That seems like probably a win from what the preseason poll looks like. Maybe
no, I don't
UCF.
think that's...
Yeah, you know, it just seems like they go ahead and take it, you know.
I don't think that's crazy whatsoever. And I think most OU fans would be pretty happy with 9-3 as a return, not quite a return to form, not a return to playoff form, but I think they would see that as, okay, last year was a fluke. We're just getting in a new system. Now we're winning football games. You know, we're back in the mix. You know, so and you've mentioned, I know we got to wrap up. So you've mentioned a couple times you do have Texas in the Big 12 championship. Who do you have Texas playing in that game?
University of Central Florida.
How about that?
Their non-conference schedule, and so I also put down the outline, like pick the best new team in the Big 12 for next year. That's also UCF. I think goes without saying from what I'm saying here.
Agreed.
Kent State. UCF kicks off the Big 12 schedule and KU does as well. But UCF, Kent State, that generally speaking should be a win. They have Gus Miles on there. Like he's gonna do some stuff with UCF.
He was fired way too quickly from Auburn, by the way.
way too
that
quickly.
was super impatient of Auburn, in my opinion. But
Yeah, and then I'm looking through UCF's tough games here. I see him dropping the game to OU. Well, maybe not. Maybe UCF gets up for it, and they're like, "Oh, let's show Dylan Gabriel what's up." There probably are still got to be a couple guys on the team. There probably are still, but there's got to be a couple guys on the team for UCF who are like, "Let's show what Dylan Gabriel what he's missing out on." As far as the quarterback transferring away from us, and really kind of having a revenge tour. The K-State game will be tough for him too, but at the end of the day, I believe in UCF. I think that so many of the Big 12 schools having to travel so far to go play against them. I mean, Baylor is wait, hang on, where are we going again? West Virginia, it's not that far, but Oklahoma State and Houston, not close. It's travel is just not looking great. The one thing that does here to UCF is that they play 6 games at home and 4 Big 12 games. So that's tough. Generally speaking, you play 5 usually, games, whatever. So it's a little odd there. West Virginia suffers from the same issue this year, and several other teams do too. When I'm looking through it, Texas Tech has, they have 4 Big 12 games at home, but then, 2 non-con. So it's most teams have this issue. But UCF, it's not like they're pulling in, Cincinnati's got to go all the way to them, and they got to go all the way there. But I do think it'll just be a Gus Malzahn throwing everything at the wall, trying to prove that he wants to move on from UCF, honestly. A lot of these guys are going to be coming through the Big 12 going, how can I get to the Big 10 SEC from now on out? And, hey, that'll be his deal. Their non-conference schedule is so easy. It should give them a lot of momentum going to play at K-State. And then their bye weeks in the middle of the season. So rest up, get some injury health, and we go from there.
I like it.
Yeah. What about you? You have Texas Tech and Baylor, right?
I've as of today, Texas Tech and Baylor, given my Texas sort of reverse psychology here. But I just don't. I think Texas Tech, I put Texas Tech above Texas in just the overachieve category. Texas, I think, will kind of be the same as they usually are. 8-4. They just lose a couple games that they shouldn't. I think Texas Tech is going to lose a bunch of games that they normally don't. I think Texas Tech is going to win games they're not supposed to, and just have a special year. I think they're kind of set up for that. Returning experience, they got better through the transfer portal, and I think they could easily get beat in that game by a possibly better coached Baylor team. That game would be really interesting. But I think Baylor, Texas Tech could shake up the Big 12 this year.
Well, you know what? Baylor, I could see it. Texas Tech would shock me, and that's just Dave Aranda already being there recently, and Jeff. Totally mixed up the Texas Tech head coach name, but
Joey McGuire.
Yeah, Joey McGuire here. I could see him doing something a little different. It's good. I mean, Texas Tech's schedule just isn't easy. They play all the Big 12 schools I wouldn't want to play. K-State, TCU, Texas. I would not want to play any of those 3. I think they're all really good, and they play UCF, who I also think is going to Big 12 championship. So, yeah,
And just last word here on Joey McGuire. He came from Baylor. He's a Baylor guy. He was the assistant head coach at Baylor for Matt Rule. In fact, he was the interim head coach when Rule went to the NFL. So there's some connection there. I think that would be an awesome game. Just a little side note. So,
I agree.
A little rematch from the regular season too.
I agree. Well, as always, Patrick, great having you on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining here.
Thanks for having me.
Love your hot takes. Love the Texas Tech fandom, kind of, but not really.
It's not fandom. It's just a vote of confidence.
It's just a vote of confidence. Hammer the over 7.5 if you're a betting man, and we'll catch up here soon. We'll have to do probably a podcast here. Maybe it's Texas bye week. Hit you up 10-14. Be like, hey, how those Longhorns doing? I'll know, of course.
We'll know by then.
But
we'll know by then what we got.
Figure it out here. So, As always, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks a lot. Hook 'em horns.
Go Pokes, or as I got an email from somebody, go Pistols. No one says that, but pistols firing is definitely a thing. So, shout out to the people sliding in my email inbox trying to really stir up some conversation by saying go Pistols. Like, I appreciate it. You looked up what school I went to through LinkedIn, but it's what it is. So, please follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more if you aren't already. And we'll catch you guys soon. Peace.